Last week, 13 members of two anti-government Michigan militia groups were arrested as part of an alleged plot to kidnap and then put Governor Gretchen Whitmer on trial for treason. She joins us now from Lansing, Michigan. Good morning to you, Governor. Do you know if this security threat is over? Do you feel safe?
Good morning. I have always felt safe. I am protected by the Michigan State Police, and they are an incredibly professional organization. But I do believe that there are still serious threats that groups like this group, these domestic terrorists, are finding comfort and support in the rhetoric coming out of Republican leadership from the White House to our state house. And so I remain concerned about safety and integrity going up to this election.
I want to get into integrity in a moment, but just to button this up. So 3 of the men that were arrested as co-conspirators and part of this plot were also involved back in the spring in April with storming the Michigan Capitol with guns at the time. Governor, these are your constituents. How do you, in your state, unify things? I know you're talking about the president and rhetoric, but what do you do to deal with this?
So, the center of all the work that we've been doing around COVID is trying to save lives. Whether people support me politically or they supported my opponent in the last election, my job as governor is to make sure that Michigan is a place where we are saving lives, we're following the science, we get our economy back on track. We have saved thousands of lives, studies have shown, by the actions that I took. We also have re-engaged our economy. We're one of the 10 top economic resurgences in the nation because of that work.
But you know, the Michigan Supreme
separate.
Court has just tried to limit the powers that you use to do some of these things like mask mandates. So now, in order to do further things, you have to work with Republicans. Clearly, there are some deep, deep divisions in your state. Can you work with them, with the Republican-controlled legislature?
Absolutely. I was raised in a household with a Republican parent and a Democratic parent. But the fact of the matter is, we have to find common ground. And I think that's what's so important in this election. Joe Biden is the kind of guy who is deeply decent and has been known for collaborating and putting the interests of the public first. Donald Trump has been incredibly divisive and downright dangerous, whether it's COVID or it is the rhetoric coming out of the White House. We have an important choice to make in the next few weeks. There are decent human beings on both sides of the aisle, but we need a leader who can bring them together. And that's why I'm excited about Joe Biden.
You heard me ask the chairwoman about whether it's a Republican strategy to try to limit access to the vote because of all the litigation. She said it's Democrats who have litigation trying to essentially skew the vote. In your state, which is going to be so key, and votes are going to be closely watched, your Secretary of State has said they will not be able to report the results of the election November 3rd. How long do you think it will take to know what the vote in Michigan was in a definitive way?
Well, I'll start with this. Jocelyn Benson, our Secretary of State, is a national expert when it comes to election law. She has said we are going to get every vote counted and we're going to keep people safe as they go to vote. We're working closely with our Attorney General, Dana Nessel, who has been a fierce advocate of protecting people's right to vote. And we're all working in a coordinated fashion. Michigan will be able to announce results, but we are not going to have artificial deadlines set by people with political agendas. We're going to get this right. It will be soon after polls close. I'm not going to put a number on it, but we're going to get it right. And I want to remind Michiganders, you can vote today. You can go into your clerk's office and cast your vote today. So every day between now and November 3rd in Michigan is election day. And the more people that vote earlier, the more likely you'll be safe and get counted.
Okay. Well, the law right now says if it's postmarked by November 3rd, as long as it arrives by November 17th, it'll count. And Republicans have objected to that length of time. But on the question of poll monitoring, in our poll at CBS News, in our Battleground Tracker, we found that half of the president's voters in Michigan think the president should encourage his supporters to go stand near polling places as watchers. Do you think this is going to be a problem in Michigan?
Here's what I can say. We are prepared. We are prepared to make sure that this election goes smoothly. We're going to keep people safe as they go to the polls. And we will not tolerate anyone who's trying to interfere with someone's ability to safely vote. We are still in the middle of a global pandemic, which is why we're really encouraging people to avail themselves of the ability to vote absentee and drop off their ballot
Are you
or to pop
encouraged?
into a clerk's office.
But given just what happened to you this week, Governor, I mean, are you worried about violence on Election Day or around it?
I'm not worried, but we are preparing to make sure that we do everything to keep people safe. And I've got incredible confidence. I know that the people of Michigan want to vote. We see how high the stakes are in this election. We're going to have historic turnout and we're going to do it right.
You are a surrogate for Joe Biden. Yesterday at an event in Pennsylvania, he seemed to question the integrity of the vote. He said, the only way we lose this is by the chicanery going on relative to polling places. He later clarified, he said he'd accept the election results. But is the Biden campaign accusing the Trump campaign and the RNC of trying to intimidate voters? Is that what he's saying?
Well, you know what? I think that a reasonable person could draw the conclusion that the efforts to undermine the Postal Service, to undermine mail-in balloting, the efforts to claim that if you don't have a result at the moment the polls close, that it's not legitimate. All of those are efforts to undermine people's confidence in this election. I think that's what Joe Biden was trying to communicate. You know, sometimes we have to issue clarifications, but the fact of the matter is, every vote's going to get counted. We've never had a significant issue with fraud via mail-in balloting, and that's why the president himself avails him of it regularly.
But to be clear, the integrity of the vote in Michigan is something that you stand by, and that is not something that Joe Biden is questioning. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. Governor, thank you very much for your time.